Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I need to get a chair. Hey, you're in the Prog Corner, boys and girls, where today we're going to be talking about 2012. We're going back in the Wayback Machine, and we're going to be taking a look at the 20 best prog rock albums from 2012. There was a prog rock site that declared 2012 to be the greatest year in the history of progressive rock. I think that site was Prog Radar, I think, declared that. I'm not going to go that far, but wow, what a bunch of great records we're going to be talking about today. 2012 is probably notable to me in that there are three absolute stone cold, lock them down classics, masterpieces that came out in 2012. Yeah, they're going to be occupying the top three slots, obviously. 2012 was a weird year. It started out with that Italian cruise ship running aground. You had the turtle in the Galapagos, Lonesome George. He died, so that species is now extinct. The Higgs boson. Yeah, they found that over at the CERN. Large Hadron Collider. Yeah, the God particle was found. We had Hurricane Sandy wiping out the East Coast. You had Barack Obama getting elected for a second term. You had Washington State become the very first place on earth to have marijuana actually legalized. And at the end of the year, we found out that the Mayans were dead wrong. The world didn't come to an end. The Mayan calendar got it all wrong. We had a bunch of notable musicians died in 2012, not least of which Etta James died in 2012, Whitney Houston, Davy Jones from the Monkees, Ronnie Montrose. You had both Earl Scruggs and Doc Watson die. Jim Marshall, yeah. What would the world be without the Marshall Stack? Dick Clark died. MCA, Adam Yauch from the Beastie Boys, Donna Summer, Robin Gibb, Bob Welsh from the old Fleetwood Mac. John Lord, huge loss to the world of music. And one of my personal favorites, Dave Brubeck, left us in 2012. Here are some honorable mentions that did not make my list. So, get your little commenting fingers ready to tell me what an idiot I am that I did not include Beardfish, did not include Devin Townsend, Flying Colors, Arian Anthony Lucasen, Peter Hamill put out an album, and Vandergraaf Generator both put out albums in 2012. Gazpacho, Sindone put out a nice record. The Baroque Project, Thank You Scientist, first album. Presto Ballet, District 97, Il Bacio della Medusa, I Am the Morning, Between the Buried and Me, The Enid, Panzer Papa, and Hasse Froberg, Musical Companion. Those are my honorable mentions. Let's not waste any more time, shall we? We're already 3 minutes in, and we haven't talked about not one single record at number 20. It's Alphataurus coming back from the dead 40 years after their great self-titled debut album. They come out with this thing called Attosecondo. Yeah, it's there's two guys from the original band. You have Pietro Pellegrini on keyboards, Guido Wasserman on guitar. A lot of this material was to be released on a second album. They actually released, the demos from it back in 92 or something. The album was going to be called Dietro Uragano, but this is reworked. This is amazing. It sounds modern, but at the same time, it's got that classic RPI. Just amazing. And if we want to talk about things from 40 years ago at number 19, how about Thick as a Brick Part 2? Yeah, 40 years after its inception as one of the greatest albums in the history of rock music, Ian Anderson decided that he would do a part 2, the subtitle to which is Whatever Happened to Gerald Bostock, and we've got a couple different iterations of what his life might have been. He's a homeless homosexual. He's a banker. He's a soldier. He's some kind of weird preacher. He's some nobody store owner. At the end, I guess all the different various possibilities for his life converge into one. Musically, it's good. Yeah, it doesn't stand a candle to its predecessor, obviously, but a lot of the people in this record recording with Ian Anderson would be part of Jethro Tull. You know, you got Florian O'Fall, John O'Hara, David Goodyear, Scott Hammond, all those people played with Jethro Tull. And at number 18, here's a rare one that I only got turned on to a few years ago. How did this one escape my attention? It's called Speak by I and Thou, and great album cover. This thing came courtesy of the one and only Annie Haslam. This band is basically the brainchild of Jason Hart, a guy who had toured with Annie Haslam in Renaissance, had also toured with Camel a little bit. This is his only album, and it is a piano-driven love affair to Genesis, basically. You've got John Galgano and Laura Mead from Is on here, and then the final track is a Rufus Wainwright cover, and it's sung by Steve Hogarth. It's really, really good. I can't believe that I hadn't heard this until a little while back. It's just crazy. At number 17, it's Baroness. Yeah, we're going to go a little heavy with Yellow and Green. This is their third album, and all their albums are the work of the great John Baisley, the singer who writes all the songs, is the only consistent member of Baroness. This was the album that came out right before their fatal bus crash, which injured 9, 2 very seriously, including John Baisley, Alan Blickel, Peter Adams, and Matt Maggioni all got injured. So after this, he kind of totally reworked Baroness for the next couple Baroness albums. But this is my favorite Baroness album. This is the one where all the progressive proclivities of this band kind of come to the fore, and March into the Sea is my favorite Baroness song. Just really, really great. Big fan. Like it a lot. Album dropped July 17th, and then exactly 28 days later, they had their real bad bus crash. At number 16, we're going to Spain and Kotebel with Concerto for Piano and Electric Ensemble. Do not let that name scare you off. This is not some classical record with a couple electric instruments put in. It's a Prog album, you know. This was my first encounter with Kotebel, but they had put out a really solid album a couple years later called Cosmology. This band was formed by a guy named Carlos Plaza, who's a Venezuelan, even though the band is based out of Spain. Really good. I can't wait to hear something new from them because it's been 6 years now. At number 15, here's a weird one. Are they Prog? I don't know. I've never talked about them on the channel before. Today, it's Swans and the Seer. Yeah, this is Michael Gira's weird act. They New York City stuff. It was no wave stuff. Their early records, Filth and Cop and Greed, were a whole lot of fun in that kind of post-punk realm. Then they did a couple really cool records, including 1996's Soundtracks for the Blind. And then they break up. Michael brings the band back together. 2010 saw My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope to the Sky, which I absolutely love. And then this one came out, The Seer. And then a couple years after my absolute favorite Swans album, To Be Kind. This is the absolute magic period for their work. There's so much progressive greatness. It's dense. It's thick. It's confusing. It's not for everybody, but I really like Swans. At number 14, let's go to some more typical capital P Prog from Canada. It's Mystery and The World is a Game. This is my favorite Mystery album. This is the third album with the great Benoit David on vocals before Yes stole him away for an album. This is the album that's got Nick DiVirgilio on drums, also joining the great Michel St. Pierre, whose band it is. Really strong. I like this a lot. The 3 albums with Benoit David are my favorites. Beneath the Veil of the Winter's Face and One Among the Living from 2010. All 3 of those records highly recommended from Mystery. Yeah, they're a little AOR, but they got enough prog to keep your prog ears happy. At number 13, it's another band I've never talked about on this channel. Kind of weird, but it's Anathema and their 9th album, Weather Systems, by far my favorite album by them. They dropped a couple more albums after this, and then they have subsequently broke up. They started out as kind of like a stoner doom black metal band, with nasty vocals and whatnot. And their early records really held very little interest for me, but as the years went along, they got better and better. And I really love the first two songs on this album, The Untouchable Part 1 and Part 2. The Lost Child is dynamite. This is basically a four-piece band at this point with Daniel and Vincent Kavanaugh and John and Lee Douglas. Really, really strong. I like them. They will be missed. At number 12, it's Crippled Black Phoenix, and this is a band that I absolutely adore. This is their fifth album. Possibly my favorite album by them. I really, really like it. This was the first album with an appearance from Belinda Cordic on vocals. I guess they started dating at this time, Belinda and the main guy, Justin Greaves. This is the sweet spot of their discography where you've got Mark Ophidian and Joe Volk on vocals and Carl D'Amata doing a whole bunch of different instruments. It's dark. It's really weird. It's post-rock, I guess, noise rock at times. But they have a great ear for melody, and it's a really fun ride. I enjoy it a lot. At number 11, this might be a little low for some of you people, but I am going with Echolyn's second self-titled album. Yeah, their first album was a self-titled affair, and they decided to have a second album with the name Echolyn, and this one is way better. Obviously, this one is really, really strong. It's a double album. But should it have been? They broke it up into two discs, each of which is about like 35 minutes long, so could have all fit on one disc, so that was a little weird, but I really, really enjoy Island. The very, very first song on the album is one of my favorite Echolyn tracks. Speaking in Lamp Black is really, really good. Ray Weston, Brett Cull, fantastic. Apparently Echolyn is working on a brand new album, and I am super excited to hear album number 11 from those Pennsylvania freaks. Now we're in the top 10. Talk about freaks from the U.S. Let's go to New Jersey and talk about some freaks named the Tea Club, led by Patrick and Dan McGowan. Their two voices are really the thing that identifies the Tea Club. I really like this album. It's called Quickly, Quickly, Quickly. Fantastic. They had two albums before this, which I really, really liked, and they had two albums after this that I might have even liked even better. 2015's Grappling and then 2019's If When. Just fantastic. They're not your traditional capital P prog band by any stretch of the imagination. There's a lot of alternative stuff in here. There's a lot of folk kind of stuff in here, but whatever. When the voices are so beautiful and the songs are written so well, I just love it. Yeah, Tea Club, dynamite. At number 9. Yeah, this is a little bit more in my wheelhouse. How about the debut album from Tusmørke, Norway's, practitioners of the dark arts? You hear these guys and you imagine they're in some forest somewhere with a big old cauldron and they're stirring something around. They're just crazy. This band started out as something called Les Fleurs de Mal. They had a guy named Andres Prestmo on vocals. Yeah, that's the guy who's been singing with the Wobbler on their last 3 albums. To go along with the Monrack brothers, Benedictator and Chrysler. They are joined by a couple more Wobbler people on this album, Lars Fredrik Frosley and the drummer Martin Nordrum Neppen. So yeah, this is just kind of like a Wobbler side project. Maybe it started out that way, but Tusmørke is dynamite. Yeah, they do sound a little like Wobbler sometimes, but they sound more like Jethro Tull. I really, really enjoy it. The vocals are in both Norwegian and English on this one, but it's just a lot of fun. I love Tusmørke at number 8. Yeah, it's Neal Morse and Momentum. This was his last album before he formed the Neal Morse Band, even though we do have all 5 members of the Neal Morse Band on here. Eric Gillette sings on Thoughts Part 5, and Bill Hubauer lends his clarinet and saxophone playing to the proceedings. You've got the great Paul Gilbert, lays down a nasty solo on the title track, and then you've got the amazing epic World Without End, which is Adson Sadre, adds some shredding guitar stuff at the end of that track. Not my favorite Neal Morse album. In fact, probably my least favorite Neal Morse album. Yet it's still number 8. Just amazing. At number 7, let's go back to Scandinavia. This time we're going to Sweden and Kaipa with their 6th reunion album entitled Vittjar. I love this one. If you put a gun to my head and ask me to pick a Kaipa album, it might be this one. It's so unassuming. It just gets the job done with songs like Light Blue and Green, Our Silent Ballroom Band, The Crowned Hillsides, and then you've got these shorter tracks, these folk tracks with the whistles, and it sounds almost like the alternate soundtrack to Titanic sometimes or something, but it's just phenomenal. If you if you don't know Kaipa, Vittjar would be a great place to start. At number 6, another one that maybe could have been a little higher. It's the 19th album from the great Canadian trio Rush, Clockwork Angels. Believe it or not, after all those years, this is actually their first concept album. Yeah, Caress of Steel had a side-long epic. 2112 had a side-long epic. Hemispheres had a side-long epic. But the other sides were not connected. So this is actually their first concept album, which is really bizarre. The whole idea of throwing steampunk, a steampunk-inspired story, kind of smashing it up against, Joseph Conrad and Voltaire. Yeah, Neal Peart never... He never did anything but swing for the fences, didn't he? And his final go-around, what a triumph. Rush never had a number 1 album in the U.S. They did, however, have 2 number 2 albums. This was one of them. What was the other one? Let me know in the comments. At number 5, it's the Flower Kings and Banks of Eden, kind of a comeback record for them, with a new drummer in tow from the previous album. He hits them really hard. Same cat played on the Royna Stalt, John Anderson album. But this is the Flower Kings at their absolute best. It's a little darker than their earlier stuff, but this album has numbers on it, and I just love that epic. If you start your album out with a 25-minute epic called Numbers, and it's that good, and then you've got 4 shorter songs. For the Love of Gold, absolutely amazing. Pandemonium, I love it. For Those About to Drown is nice. And then it ends with Rising the Imperial. And that is it. Really short record for the Flower Kings. There was a bonus disc with more material, and those songs are really good too. I have absolutely nothing bad to say about Banks of Eden. I love it. One of my favorite Flower Kings albums. At number 4, we're going to San Diego, California. It's Astra and the Black Chord, their 2nd album, their final album. 2 members from this band subsequently went on to form the band called Birth, and their first album came out last year, and it was just phenomenal. It's space rock, yeah, a little bit. It's psych rock, yeah, a little bit. Stoner rock, sure, but it's got all those vintage sounds. It's got that retro feel. Is it prog? Absolutely, it's prog. I love the opening track, Cocoon. The instrumentation in that is just beautiful. And then the second song is the epic title track. Just amazing. And then the third song is Quake Meat. I mean, it just never lets up. It's a fantastic record. I love Astra. There's a reason why people were begging for a third Astra album, and they got something similar with the Born album, but whatever. At number 3, we're going back to Scandinavia, going to Norway, and Motorpsycho and Ståle, Storløkken, and the death-defying unicorn. This was the exact moment that Motorpsycho decided to be a progressive band. This thing is as prog as it gets. If you don't know Ståle, Storløkken, he's the keyboard player for that weird avant-garde experimental band Super Silent. But this album is just great, and it kind of started a whole run of greatness from Motorpsycho. The following year, they did Still Life with Eggplant. Then they did Behind the Sun, Here Be Monsters, The Tower, The Crucible, The All Is One. Just such a great, phenomenal run of greatness from Motorpsycho. At number 3, it's amazing. Any other year, that would have been my number 1 album. Speaking of any other year, at number 2, it's Änglagård and Viljans Öga. Talk about any other year, this thing would be number 1, absolutely. The lineup here is Jonas, Änglagård, Johan Brand, Thomas Johnson, Anna Holmgren, and the great Matthias Olsson on drums. 3 of those people are still in the band. Apparently, they just announced some new dates. Hopefully, there'll be a new album from Änglagård coming. I don't know what happened to Anna Holmgren and Thomas. I don't know why they're not in the band anymore. Maybe y'all can shed some light on that, because I'm a huge Änglagård fan, and I'm really, really hoping that they put out a 4th album here. Yes, it's time. It's time. What it is? Well, you probably know already, don't you, kids? I got the vinyl right here. Yeah, at number 1, it's Big Big Train and the English Electric Part 1. This was the moment that Big Big Train entered the big leagues after having scored with the 2009's Underfall Yard, which was terrific, but this was the album that brought them to the Premier League, with songs like The First Rebreather, Uncle Jack, Judas Unrepentant, Summoned by Bells, Hedgerows. The whole album is perfect from start to finish. Big Big Train made a big impact on me in 2012 when English Electric dropped, and that's why it's my number 1 prog album of 2012. But honestly, my top 3, any of those 3 could have been number 1, and then any other year probably would have been number 1. Anyway, my ring light went out, which is probably good because it's really, kind of nasty on my face anyway. But I'm probably going to continue my series Under the Influence later on this week. We did Yes last week, bands that are influenced by Yes. Guess who we're doing this week? Yeah, you can guess who we're doing this week. Anyway, I love you guys. Have a great day. This went a little longer than I had planned. That's why I did 20 instead of 25. Here we are, still breaking the 21-minute mark. I apologize. What else are you doing on a Monday, right? Anyway, peace in the Middle East. I love you guys. And just remember, God save the king. And Charlie too.